Road Trip is back for another season here on Jet Life. Jets-Panthers tomorrow. Let's bring in Jonathan Alexander of the Charlotte Observer. Jonathan, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so we got to start off. I know the storylines are going to be about Sam Darnold against his former team. How about Christian McCaffrey, the return of CMC? If you're a fantasy owner, you know what he did in 2019, but how much of a difference is he going to make in this Panthers offense?
I mean, I think he'll make a huge difference. Had 1,000 yards receiving and more than 1,000 yards rushing back in 2019. He's still a young guy, I think 25 years old. Last year he got hurt, and they had a lot of plans for him. They wanted to use him a lot, and he only played in 3 games. And Matt Rule talked about it on Monday. That he's really looking forward to having Christian back because there's just so many things he can do. In past, he's the Panthers' safety net. When they don't have anybody open, they can easily dump it off, and he could just make plays. And he's finally healthy. Those injuries are in the past, and he's looked good so far. So, they have real high hopes for him.
Talking about the Panthers' defense, though, Jonathan, Brian Burns is a player that I think Panthers fans are familiar with, but maybe this is the year where he catapults himself onto the NFL radar alongside Hassan Reddick manhandling that other spot. Do you think that this is the year that he finally takes that double-digit sack jump?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, he had, I think, 8.5 or 9 sacks last year. And he was the defensive MVP of the team, had 3 forced fumbles. What you saw towards the end of that year last year was a lot of teams started to double team him when they figured out how good he was. One of the Panthers' biggest problems was outside of Brian Burns, they didn't really have a pass rush, especially at that other defensive end spot. Yetur Gross-Matos missed some time, and it was his rookie season, didn't really play that well. So people started to put a lot more focus, and now they got Hassan Reddick, a 12 sack player. And you can't put all that focus on Brian Burns. And Brian Burns is entering his 3rd year, and he can only get better. So, I think Brian Burns will continue that, and I do think he'll have a double sack season, and you might see him make the Pro Bowl.
Who's a player that we have not talked about, whether that's offense or defense, that you think needs a little more attention?
I think Jeremy Chinn is one of those players. He was a front runner for Defensive Rookie of the Year, lost to it by Chase Young, who was the overwhelming favorite. But if you talk to voters, Jeremy Chinn was second. Few people even voted for him. I think he has an amazing potential. He was a 2nd-round pick for the Panthers last year. Last year he played linebacker. It was his first time in his whole career playing linebacker, but they moved him to his natural spot as safety, and I think that gives him a lot more flexibility to do what he's natural at. He's a ball hawk, a really great tackler. So I think that's a guy who you definitely want to keep your eye on. People are starting to know who he is, and that's because of his play.
For the Jets here, if they're competitive in this game, where do they need to poke and prod, whether they're on offense or on defense?
Definitely with their defense, they've got to get after Sam Darnold. And kind of expose that offensive line of the Panthers. I think one of the things where Sam Darnold struggled, and you know this, and I've looked at him on film, is when that pressure got to his face, he kind of got happy feet, kind of rushed in the pocket, and threw off his back foot. And I think, that's one of the things he's been working on this offseason, his footwork, trying to stay poised in the pocket. In the preseason game, he had a couple times where he kind of got a little antsy and rushed when the pressure got to his face, like in the Pittsburgh Steelers preseason game. But he says he's getting a little bit better at that, and has been working on that. But I think if the Jets want to expose the Panthers, they'll definitely expose the left side of that offensive line.
All right, Jonathan, we're gonna end up here with a softball. Being a Carolina native, Carolina barbecue better than Texas and Kansas City barbecue, or how do you power rank them?
I don't think I've had Texas barbecue, but I've had Kansas City barbecue. And Carolina barbecue is definitely the best. My sister lives in Houston, So if Houston barbecue was better, she would have put me on by now. So Carolina barbecue, let me reiterate, North Carolina barbecue is the best. And there's South Carolina, and they have their own barbecue, but it's not nearly as good as North Carolina barbecue.
But are you on Kansas City one, then North Carolina, or are you going North Carolina and paying homage to your roots here?
North Carolina is the best. Kansas City is good. Kansas City isn't bad, but it can't compare with North Carolina barbecue.
And that is okay, so wait. For those, if you're a Jets fan, if you're going down to Carolina or you're in Carolina, maybe just the next time somebody is in Carolina, where should they go for Carolina barbecue?
They need to go to the eastern part of the state. That's where the real barbecue is. It's less than an hour away. Lexington has a really good barbecue too. So you have your two different barbecues.
Jonathan, thanks for joining us today.
I appreciate you having me on.